Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Power Widgets Deep Dives. Today, the special guest on the show is Valentin Mazhar. Hi, Valentin, how are you doing?
Hey, Pavez, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So, Valentin, for those viewers who might be watching you or hearing from you for the first time, tell us about a little bit about who you are, what your background is, what you do, where you are, perhaps as well, and we'll start from that.
Sure, thanks, Pavez. So I'm based in Barcelona. I'm originally from France, as you might hear from my accent, but I'm based in just outside Barcelona, and I've been working with the Power Platform for, I can't remember exactly the year, but Power Automate was still called Microsoft Flow back then. Started on the maker side, helping the business building solutions to improve their processes. And then I fairly quickly transitioned over to the governance side. And so setting up center of excellence, governance framework for the Power Platform. And that's what I've been doing really for the last 6 or 7 years, focusing on the governance piece. On a personal level, I've got two baby twins of a year and a half who keep me very busy. so
So they require their own level of governance, right?
they require a whole other level of governance that I can't automate. so, because
Yeah.
so that's why basically I try to do in the Power Platform. Luckily, there's a lot that can be automated. I can build tools to make my life easier. I'm still to find ways to do this in with my family, but I think this is going to be a whole other project.
Excellent. Yeah. I think we all struggle with that. So maybe that's a discussion for another day.
I
So,
think so. Yeah.
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so much once again, Valentin, for joining us. So you're known as Mr. Governance in the community, right? And a lot of the tools that you have built and shared with the community are in this area. And this is an area which is really important, especially as customers decide to, adopt the platform and take on more of the workload themselves without necessarily relying on a partner. So it's definitely a hot place to be. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the tools that you've built and the ones that you're going to be showing us today. Give us a brief description around what those tools are, what the target use cases are, before we jump into a full demo.
Sure. Thanks, Pavel. So yeah, I've been supporting organizations of various sizes, but mostly large organizations, um, and really working with them to build and implement their governance. And as someone who spent my day doing it, there's a lot of time that I hit some challenges or obstacles. Sometimes the platform, the native controls of the platform are not enough. And when this happens, I usually try to see is there something that I can build custom to help me be more efficient. And I think the first example I'd like to talk about today it is really new. I released it yesterday and shared about it this morning. It's how to prevent the creation of an agent in an environment. And this is needed it can be needed for many different reasons. So often enterprises will have a strategy, an environment strategy of who should be able to build what on which environment. And more now, I think people are becoming more aware of it. The default environment, we try to keep it fairly, to a fairly constrained scope, personal productivity, not do too much advanced things. And so a common need, a legitimate need for people is how do I prevent people from creating agents in the default environment? Um, why do you want to do that other than just restricting the default environment? Maybe you want to make sure that your makers have some knowledge of how you govern things before they even start to create an agent. Maybe in Europe with the EU AI Act and some other regulation, maybe internally you decide that you want people to document a use case before they start implementing it. So you need to have a way to restrict them and prevent them from creating something in the first place, so that you can comply with whatever your strategy might be to govern the platform. Today, doing
Right.
this is very hard, because on the default environment, you don't control the security rules assigned to users. So you can't say remove the permissions to create agent to a user. You could do it through licensing, in different ways, but then this will apply to all environments. So you can't say use that approach and restrict in one environment and not the others. You can use data policies, but this doesn't prevent the creation of an agent. you can still create agents. It's just that then your agent can't do very much. But this is quite a lot of friction for makers because they start creating agent and they can't do anything with it, or most of the things are blocked, but not everything. Then they have a poor experience. They come back to you complaining, asking, the idea is maybe you can prevent them, share with them when they try, share with them the governance materials instead and explanation of where to go from here and how to get access to what they want. And then they can start from scratch in the right place. So that's the whole concept or the need around this solution I released yesterday or this morning.
Nice, cool. Yeah, so that sounds super interesting, especially with what's happened with the Center of Excellence recently, where, I don't know whether this particular capability was a feature of it or not, but generally that was the kind of gold standard for governance, right? So yeah, please take over the screen share and show us the power of this new tool that you've shared, and talk us through maybe use cases, and start off with the more basic features and work your way up to the more advanced scenarios as well.
Awesome. I'm gonna share my screen then, and I'll start by sharing my blog. So powertricks.io. This is where you can find all the different tools and articles that I create. And the one we're talking about now is this one: how to block agent creation at environment level. And I'm opening this article. Yeah, go on.
I was going to say we'll drop a link to your blog on your website in the description to the video, so people can get to that as well.
Awesome. And so I'm showing this article to show this visual that explain the architecture of this solution. So it involves actually two solutions. A satellite solution that you will inside in a satellite environment. That's why you want to block the agents from being created. So that's the satellite solution. And then a core solution that will be installed in a central environment where you have some central components that you want to have in a central place. What happens is you will have a maker trying to create an agent in a satellite environment, like the default environment, for example. They try to create an agent. What happens in the background is Copilot Studio, when you try to create an agent, it's trying to store this agent metadata in the bot table of Dataverse in that environment. That's what happens. All the agent metadata, the configuration, when you create or edit an agent, it's stored in the bot and the bot components table of Dataverse. So as you try to create an agent in this environment, there is a plugin from that satellite solution that is going to fire. And it fires before that the role can be created in the bot table. This plugin is going to go do two things. It's going to block the creation and throw an exception. This way you can't create the agent in the bot table. If you can't create the agent in the bot table, you can't create the agent at all. So the agent is not created. And it's also going to call a flow that is in the core solution. And this flow is going to write into a table to log the attempts, just so that we know someone tried to create an agent in this environment. And you're going to store this centrally. As you write into this table, it's going to call another flow that's going to send a notification to the maker of the teams with the governance materials, internal content that you want them to read, to explain why they were not able to do it, and so on. So that's the idea at a high level.
Right. So this is a tool or solution that spans multiple environments, right? So I suppose you've got different components that need to be distributed across those environments for this thing to work end to end potentially.
Exactly. And we can show it. So there's two solutions: satellite solution in the environments where you want to block the agent, and then the core solution. So let's have a look at them. It's going to be a lot more clear. So here I am on the default environment called personal productivity. And I have this satellite solution installed. But this satellite solution contain is the plugin I was talking about. This plugin is going to fire whenever we try to create an agent in this environment. And then this plugin is going to call a flow from the core solution that is somewhere else. How does the plugin know which flow to call with this environment variable? So there is an environment variable called agent creation logging flow URL. this variable needs to point to the flow of the core solution, because that's the flow that will be called from the plugin.
So
There's
just coming back to the just coming back to the plugin then. The plugin itself is obviously rolling back the entire transaction at the point of attempt made to create the bot, right? So
exactly.
it's a synchronous plugin running within the transaction in order to roll back the transaction.
Exactly. It's running at a pre-validation step. And so the row is never created in the table.
And
Absolutely.
it's just a regular C# plugin, database
It's
plugin.
a regular C# plugin that throws an exception, and you can customize it with these variables. So you can define the endpoint of the flow you want to call from the plugin. You can also customize the plugin exception, the error message thrown by the plugin. At the moment, I've just put this one as a default value. We'll see it in a minute. And then there's another functionality that I added, which is maybe you want to have an exception and have an allow list of who should be able to create agent in this environment. And so you have this other variable that here is blank, but you can have it a comma separated list of patterns. And if the email of the maker matches one of these patterns, contain one of those strings, then they will be allowed to create the agent. We can demo all of this as well, but that's the idea. Okay, so and then there's another flow, and this is because surprisingly, all the environment makers of an environment can turn off the plugins.
Oh, really? Okay.
So if you set this whole thing up and then one maker, a clever one, see this plugin and turn it off in the default environment, the whole control is bypassed and stop working.
Yeah.
But so this flow is listening whenever a plugin step is disabled, and it's going to turn it back on if this is this specific plugin step. And this flow, the environment makers don't have access to it because you set it up as an admin. So that's the way that if someone ever turns it off, it will be turned back on straight away. Okay, so that's the satellite solution. If I go back to the image, that's the solution which has the plugin, block the creation, and calls the flow from the core solution.
Yeah. So could we drill in a little bit more into the mechanism by which you are calling that Cloudflow from the plugin logic? Was that is that just a HTTP call to the flow?
Yeah, that's an HTTP call that is in the plugin.
Yeah.
That is going to pull the environment variable value to know which flow to which endpoint to call, and then it's making a post request to that endpoint to trigger the flow.
Okay.
Awesome. Now from the core, if we look at the core solution, now I am in a separate environment. That would be essentially the central environment where the Power Platform COE has their governance systems. In this solution, we have the flow that is being called by the plugin. It's called log agent creation attempt. I'm not gonna, I think it's open here actually. This has an HTTP trigger. And what it does is it directly responds straight away to the plugin so that the plugin doesn't wait for a long time before showing the message to the user. And then it will essentially create a row in the agent creation attempt table. And this table is this one, where there's nothing in it now, but let's maybe test and we can see exactly what happens. What do you say? We'll give it a go.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do it.
So now I've got another account that's Adele Vance, the famous test users in a demo tenant. I am in Copilot Studio on the default environment. And what I'll do, and it works in both experiences of Copilot Studio. Let's try to create one now with the old experience. I will call it old experience attempt. And I will click create. Now what this is going to do, it's trying to write in the bot table, the plugin is firing, calling the flow and throwing an exception. And we can see here that there is an error message Copilot Studio agent creation is not supported in this environment. Contact your administrator for more information. That's the environment variable of the satellite solution that I was showing earlier. Now, because this message is a bit ugly and you don't really have control over exactly how it's rendered, maybe Microsoft tomorrow will stop showing the exception that you raise in your plugin. So you don't have control over it, which is why you have this flow that will write into the table. It should have done it already. So we can see now that there was the agent with the name old experience attempt that Adel Vance has tried to create today. This was blocked and the notification was sent. And it's also adding the link of the logging flow URL so that we can check what happened if we want to, and also the notifying flow. So the notifying flow is the other flow that we haven't talked about. When the row was created in this table, the notification flow was fired and sent a message to Adel. And as Adel, I received this message to tell me, I tried to create this agent in this environment. This is not allowed. Have a look at the governance materials or contact our team. This entire message here is also customizable and the image, not by changing the flow, but with another environment variable that sits in the core solution. So in the core solution, there is this agent creation card. It's a JSON variable. And you can define the different property, the link of the image, and so on. And essentially the title, the subtitle, so that you can customize easily the message without changing the flow or re-engineering the system.
Yeah, nice. So just coming into some of your design decisions around this, was there any reason why you chose to create that record in the core environment using a flow? Could it have been done using the original plugin that fired?
Right, that first. The problem is when you throw the exception, it reverts back anything you've done before. So if I write into that central table with the web API, for example, then that row is removed. So the only way I found to persist a row in the table was to call a flow, because once the call the flow is called, you can't call it back. So that was the way. The logic to write into that separate table had to be outside the plugin. And that's the reason. But I tried first what you were suggesting, because having a separate flow for this, it was not ideal.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because you want to have a separate transaction to allow it to continue. Absolutely.
Exactly. Now, what happens is if the user is in the allow list, you will still log it, but it will say that it is not blocked, and the notification will say NA or none needed. So you still log that someone is wanting to create an agent. They were allowed, so they're not going to receive the notification. The overall idea.
Oh, nice. Cool. So where can tell us a little bit about where can people find the solution, and yeah, is it open source, for example, and can people contribute to it? What's your arrangement around that?
Yeah, absolutely. So on my blog, you'll find more information about how it works and a bit more details, but I think we've covered the basics here. And then there's the link to my GitHub repo, where you can download the solution. You can download the core and the satellite solutions as managed or unmanaged, so that you can make it your own. Always welcoming any idea or suggestions to improve. And so if anyone is happy to make it better, let me know, and I'll be happy to include your contributions. I don't store the unpack version in my GitHub repo. It's only the package solution. So it makes the collaboration maybe a little bit harder. It's something that I might reconsider in the future.
For this one in particular, though, because there's a plugin involved, you might want to share the actual source code for the plugin as well. If
I think I'll add, it's a good point. I'll add the source code just so that people can have a look before installing in the tenant. Absolutely. Now, there's one thing that's handy. It's right now, it really relies on the admin installing the satellite solution to all the environments where you want to block the creation of agents. If you just want to block it in the default environment, that's fine. You can do this manually. But if you are a large organization, maybe you get new environments created on a weekly basis, and some of those should have agents blocked whenever you create them. So how do you deploy this satellite solution efficiently to multiple downstream environments? And here again, you have got different options. You could set up pipeline in DevOps, but there's quite a lot of configuration setup involved for an environment that maybe is going to be created tomorrow. And the only thing you'll ever need to do is deploy that solution there. So it seems a bit heavy in terms of setup. You have the catalog, the product catalog, I think it's called in the Power Platform, but it only works with a pool approach, meaning that someone in the downstream environment needs to pull your solution from the catalog to install it. So again, it's not really automated and so for this, I created a solution a few years ago now called the Solution Deployer. Initially, I created it to be able to deploy component libraries and other reusable components to multiple environments so that the center of excellence in an organization can build those reusable things and deploy them everywhere with a push fashion instead of only pull as the catalog is.
Yes.
And I can
this
demo this. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a nice segue into the next tool we're talking about, right?
Exactly. The Solution Deployer.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
So,
Tell a little about this tool, and I think you've already mentioned the use cases and what it serves. So yeah, tell a little bit more about your journey into creating this one, because I think this one's created a lot long ago compared to the one that you've just demoed, right? So this must have
yeah,
a different story around it.
absolutely. I think the Solution Deployer, if we have a look at when it was initially released, I mean, more than 2 years ago, that's when the first version was released. Here, the need was, as a center of excellence doing the governance for the Power Platform, you often want to build reusable components that you can share with your makers in all their environments to allow them to be more efficient. A common example is a component library for Canvas apps, for example. You might want to have a branded component library for them to not have to reinvent all the design and make sure things are consistent. You could also imagine in model-driven apps, you've got those settings to change the appearances. Maybe you define that all the dev environments should have the banner at the top, blue, for example. You could do this as well with the Solution Deployer. The idea is any reusable assets that you want to deploy to downstream environment. Other examples would be child flows, common child flows, or custom connectors that you might also want to create in one place and then share them globally. Table with the metadata so that if you want to allow people, I don't know, to build their own error handling system, you could say, hey, write your errors in a custom table, and you can use the table that's already provisioned in your environment. So all these kind of ideas. As a center of excellence, how do you boost your organization's productivity using the platform? By providing them with reusable components.
Yeah, excellent. So this is a concept that the pro devs in the world will be familiar with, the dry principle, right? So don't repeat yourself. You build it once and you kind of reuse it multiple times. So this is kind of an extension of that concept, and you're trying to basically take it organization wide. So yeah, this is really cool. Tell us a little bit about and gives a demo of it, and shows the features that's starting from the basic parts of it, and any configuration options are available to users and stuff.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I scratched my head for a while about this problem because I didn't want to go through the route of setting up the DevOps pipeline to share those components. Because again, we're not talking about environments that we'd use to develop solutions. It was just to make components available in those environments. So it didn't, in my opinion, didn't warrant for the setup you need to set up DevOps pipeline. Again, the product catalog at that time was not available anyway, but even when it came later on, it was only on a pool approach. I didn't want to ask need people to decide to pull I wanted to have it available for them as an asset whenever they go on their environment, no matter what. So I scratched my head for a long time about it. And then it's an article from David Wyatt, who created an article showing how from Power Automate, you can export and import solutions with a flow. With the unbound actions with the Dataverse connector. And I didn't know this. And so using his approach to do this, I built that solution deployer system to manage this exactly in the way that I wanted it to work for that specific organization. So the idea is you have a few components in this solution deploy. It's also a Power Platform solution. You can also find it on my GitHub repo, the managed and the unmanaged version. And the first thing you need to do when you set it up is point to the source environment. So what is your source where you want to develop components from? This is an environment variable, is this one. In this case, it's pointing to an environment called demo source. The demo source is the environment where I will have the satellite solution, for example, or the component library solutions that I will want to deploy to multiple environments. Another thing, because in those environments, you've got many publishers, including publishers from Microsoft. You also define the publishers that you're interested in, so that it doesn't propose you to deploy the out-of-the-box Microsoft solutions like the default solution. You wouldn't want to try to deploy the default solution from one place to another. Probably would fail, but you don't want to try anyway. I don't want to try. And then is the tables that I'm using to do this. And essentially the key table is the deployment table. I'll go into the solution now. So in the model-driven app, when you add a row in the deployment table, this is what will trigger the flow that will export the solution and then import the solution into the interesting. I'm having an error. It's okay. Not sure what happened. So the idea is when I click add, is going to add a custom page on the SAD pane. This custom page is going to check the source environment and is going to ask me to select a solution that I want to deploy. For example, the satellite solution I was talking to about earlier.
So this will be pre-populated with any unmanaged solution that is in that source environment.
Exactly. It's going to, with the Dataverse connector, it's going to check the source environment that we've defined in our variable, and it's going to see all the solutions with the selected publishers. In that case, my PowerTricks publisher and the PowerCat publisher, and allowing me to select the solution. Then tell me the version of that solution in this environment. It's asking me in which environment do you want to deploy that solution to. For example, it's already in it, but we can select the default environment. Then you have a few configuration. Do you want to import as managed? By default, it's yes. Do you want to import the workflows are published? So if you have flows or plugins, do you want them turned on or off when you import the solution? Target owner is after deployment is going to look at all the solution components and reassign them to the target owner. The reason I'm doing this is because in large organization, you might have environments that are managed by other teams with another admin managing those environments. So you have the Power Platform central admin team, and then you have local teams managing their own environments. So you can define who that person is for an environment, and they're the ones who will be the owner of what you deploy. You probably don't want with your central admin account be the owner of all those solutions in the environment.
So this is pre-populated with all the users in this particular environment, or is it every user in Entra ID?
Well, actually, it's a good point. So before you create a deployment, you first need to have the target environments defined. So you define what are the potential targets where you want to deploy solutions to. So in that case, there is this target environment with already the target owner configured for this environment. So you define it once. When you try to deploy to this environment, it's showing you the default value, but it's allowing you to overwrite it if you want to select someone else specifically for this solution. So when I select the environment default, it's pre-populating with the account in the target environment that corresponds. So this does not connect to the live environments. It connects to the target environment table in the solution.
Okay.
And essentially, as you click save, it's going to trigger well, let's do it. I will refine my solution, the default environment. I will import as managed, things published. Target sign in is when you have connection references, is going to contact this account to ask them to map the connection references after they imported if they never mapped. So essentially, at the first deployment, this account will receive an email telling them, here are all the connection references you need to map in the target environment. And then the next time it won't be prompted, they won't be prompted again. So that's what's native with what you do with the settings file in a pipeline with DevOps, or what's in product with the out-of-the-box pipelines. It's checking the connections already. Here, you don't have that capability, of course, so you have to do it after deployment. And now if I click save, it's going to be queued. This is going to trigger the exporter flow. So there's a first flow that exports the solution. It's already now, if we refresh, we can see it exporting, and we can see the URL of the flow that's exporting the solution. This flow, updating the status and the flow run URL. And then it is essentially doing an unbound action to export the solution both as unmanaged and as managed. And once this is done, we're going to see the unmanaged and managed packaged install available here, so that you also keep the history of the package. It's going to take sometimes it takes a little while. It's fairly quick. It sometimes takes a little while. Mm-hmm.
Any reason why you export both rather than just the one that the user has selected?
Any reason why it's both the unmanaged and managed package that we export?
Yeah. Yeah.
In that case, not any particular reasons. What it does in the end is the exports always export both, and then the importer flow will only import the one based on what you've selected, if you selected import at managed or not. No particular reasons, but it's not that much more expensive to export both and have the both package. So now they exported, the status was updated to exported, and this triggered another flow, which is the importer flow. And if we look at this importer flow, it's very similar. That's by updating the URL and the status. Then it downloads well, in that case, even download both files, so that it's essentially get both the unmanaged and managed package. Then the unbound action in a selected environment, this is to do the actual solution import. So it's using the import solution action, providing the content of that solution package, the property that we've defined, and this is what's going to import the solution. Now it's already imported, but it's not finished. After that, there's a child flow that will check all the solution components in the target environment, and are gonna reassign those components to the target owner to change the permission. If it fails, it will stop here and update the status to explain that this has failed at the ownership update. There's another child flow that will do the same thing for the connection references. Check if there's any connection references in that solution that is not mapped to a connection in that environment. Then,
so can we dig a little bit deeper into the error handling you have in play here? Because obviously Cloudflows run asynchronously, right? So how does the model-driven app get informed in case of a failure in the export and import?
So actually, all of this is synchronous. So the flow is starting based on the status of that deployment, and it's starting when the deployment I think there's a trigger, a trigger condition that will only start when the status is exported. So that's that's the trigger to import the flow. And then this is all synchronous. So when we call the child flow, for example, to update the ownership, we can have a look at this flow. Ownership updater. This flow is running synchronously. And at the end, if it fails anywhere, it will respond a failure to the parent flow. Otherwise, it will respond success. So when we look at the output of this flow, this is telling us this is completed, so this worked, and it's also giving the flow run for troubleshooting, so that you can easily find the related flow run if there was a failure. And in that case, it also returns some connection reference information.
Right. So it's synchronous on the basis that the custom page that invoked is waiting for a response from the flow, right?
No, so the table itself is not waiting for a response, but you always use the status as a way to anchor you in the process. So right now, the status is importing the child flow. The parent flow is running to import the solution. If this child flow will return an error and will say it didn't work, then we will change the status to fail and we terminate the process. So that's how you know you don't continue further.
Right.
And so you check the solution, the connections that need mapping. You also check the variables that need mapping, and then it's the same. Then once you know if there's any connection references needing mapping, any environment variables needing mapping, you can run the flow that will send the notification and notify the target owner to say there's a new thing installed, a new solution deployed to your environment. It will tell them if there's any environment variables that need mapping, and it will also tell the account sign in if there's any connection needing mapping. And then it's done. So now if we look at this solution, if we refresh, it is now completed. Nice. In that case, we have just reinstalled it in the same environment. And so we received just a notification as the target owner to say this has been installed. Now, this is great, but we've only done one deployment. The question is, how do you then do this at scale and deploy it to multiple places? You could write manually as many rows as you have target environments with a flow, with a system to deploy it everywhere. Or you can do, then what I did was the concept of solution subscription. You can create a subscription of a solution, very similar experience, a side pane, you select your solution, select all the environments where you want to deploy your solution to. Let's select 2 for now, target 4 and the default environment, and then you click save. Now, it's just going to check some additional information, and it's going to check there's a flow that is going to run to populate this in a second. And then once you have this, you can deploy the subscription. And deploying the subscription is going to add 1 deployment per subscribed environment. So that's the idea of this solution deployer, is that then in the future, you have as many environments as you want in your subscription. Whenever you click deploy, let's do it now, it's going to ask me for confirmation, going to write a row, a subscription deployment row, to say that we've deployed this subscription. And adding a row in the subscription deployment table is going to trigger another flow that will add 1 deployment per target. Right. So that's where we are here. And so now if we go back to my deployments, we can see that you have now 2 deployments in progress, 1 to the default environment, 1 to demo target 4. Demo target 4, to demo that this works, I think I'm on it here, does not have the solution today. So the satellite solution is not installed at all. Yeah. If I go back, demo target 4 as a target owner and target account sign in, that is Adele. So if I go back to these deployments, in a few seconds, Adele is going to receive an email telling her that the satellite solution has been installed to demo target 4 and is also going to ask her to map the connection, the Dataverse connection that's needing for the flow that will turn the plugin back on if someone turn it off. So that's essentially, we can see this in a few seconds, but I'll pause there because I speak a lot. How does that sound so far?
Yeah, no, this is really cool, and I'm really seeing the value of this in terms of. So, I wouldn't I wouldn't class this as a replacement for a full-blown ALM
Oh,
system, right? This is more of a tool for distribution of reusable or shared artifacts across an estate of environments. So it's really about promoting the reusability of components across an organization. So there's no integration with things like source control or automated builds or deployments or anything like that. It's simply a distribution tool.
exactly. It's not at all, I don't position this as an ALM tool. There's
Yeah.
no source control. There's no all those kind of things you'd expect if you want to really build enterprise solution, only to distribute downstream without needing the setup of pipelines or managed environments. This is all just
Sure.
done with Power Automate. You only need a premium license for one account that is using this app or the flows with the Dataverse connector, and that needs to be a system admin on all the downstream environments, essentially. Um,
Correct. But there's still value, and there's still a powerful solution, I think, to be able to do something like this, right? It's
yeah, and it's quick. I mean, it's already done. You see, the two
yeah,
ones here have already been exported and imported.
yeah,
And if I go
yeah.
in with Adele accounts, I should have received an email. Firstly, the ownership flow that updated the co-ownership of the flow. I received an automated email by Microsoft saying I'm now added as a co-owner. And then
Mhm.
this is the email I received saying this solution has been deployed. There is a connection reference that need to be mapped, and it's giving me the link. The link doesn't redirect me to that solution because it's managed. It's redirecting me to the default solution, to the connection references component, and it's telling me it's this connection reference that need mapping. So what I can do from here is find this connection reference and make sure that it's mapped to one of my connection in this environment. And now the next time I deploy it, it's not going to ask me again because it's already mapped. So that's how you can deploy this satellite solution in multiple places in a fairly easy way. Essentially, what you will do is create a subscription with all the environments where you don't want the agents to be created, and then deploy it and just map those connections once in all the target environments. If tomorrow there's a new environment, what you can do is automatically add a row in the deployment to deploy that solution there once, and also add it as in the subscribed environment so that the next time you do an upgrade, it automatically receives any update. And so if you automate this in your environment provision process, you got no or very little manual work involved
Yeah.
to deploy this. Same for component
Nice.
libraries or reusable components.
This is very cool. I love the way how you combined two separate isolated tools to come together to bring together something really powerful as a solution for governance purposes. That's really cool. I had one last question, Valentin.
Yeah,
So you demonstrated the ability to deploy a solution across multiple environments. What if that source solution now is updated? There's some change made to it, a new version has been generated. How do you then distribute that new version? Is it just run the deployment again?
exactly. The one thing you need to do manually at the moment, it could be a good idea to do it from this deployer, but right now you need to bump the version manually in the source. So in that case, I
Mhm.
will go to the source environment. I will go to this solution. At the moment is the version 2026-07-16.1. I can update it, for example, to add 2, update. And once this is done, and this you could do it from the solution deployer with a little bit of work, But right now, from this solution, I just redeploy it, and it's now going to export the new version and re-import it in all the subscribed environment. So we will see if I go in deployment, we can see that the ones that are now exporting, you can see is the new version here. So that's how you will just upgrade the existing solution.
That's very cool. Cool. No, thank you so much, Valentin, for sharing that as well. I think if you could just tell us where people can find this tool. Once again, I'm assuming it's going to be in your GitHub. Whether they've got code available or is it just the binaries, the solutions?
Yeah, the solutions are available right now. Everything you can find from powertricks.io, I think is the best way to find all those tools, or directly in GitHub. But the articles give you a lot more information on how to use, and then there's always a link to the GitHub repo. If you click on the tools category of my articles, you will find all the other tools I share, and I think somewhere in here there should be the solution deployer here. And further below, you have the link to find it in my GitHub repo. Now, there's another thing we didn't talk about is those target environments. If you don't want to create them manually, and if you have the CUI-kit installed, you can set up this data flow that is going to just pull the environments from the CUI-kit into your target environment table. But if you don't have the CUI-kit or don't want to use it, this solution is completely independent from it. So those two solutions we've seen to block agent creation and the solution deployer are completely independent from the CUI-kit.
Nice, very cool. Very cool. Thanks so much, Valentin, for sharing that. If people have got questions about any of these tools, what's the best way to get in contact? Is it raise an issue in your GitHub or
Can raise
yeah?
an issue in GitHub. Can also find me on LinkedIn. It depends. If it's a technical bug, an issue on GitHub is probably the right way to do it. If it's a question, an idea, feel free to reach out via LinkedIn. Genuinely, I'm always quite happy when people in the community reach out. So don't hesitate. You'll find me again from my blog. You will find the contact button and you'll find my LinkedIn link there.
Thank you so much, Valentin. This has been really, really helpful, and I'm sure the viewers will take a lot of benefit from this. You've got a bunch of additional tools as well. I know I've seen on your blog post. So, in the future, if you're open to it, I'd love to have you on the show again to talk about some of those tools. But for now, I think you've shared some amazing insights. So thank you once again, and we'll hopefully the community will take benefit from this, and we'll get a bit more engagement and inspiration for other people as well. So thank you for joining us in, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Paves. That was fun.